Okay, we're live. Liam, you want to take us away?
Yeah, sure. Happy wasmCloud Wednesday, everyone, for 2026, May 20th. We've got a couple items to run through on today's agenda. We're going to start with an overview of our new community meeting notes. And then I think we're going to have a demo and a discussion with Aditya today. Aditya, I'm happy to start with my demo of the new community notes, or do you want to start with your demo? Are you ready to go?
I think I'll require a bit more time, so you can go ahead.
Sure. Well, one of the things that we have been thinking about doing with wasmCloud is making the community meetings a little bit more accessible. We've been running wasmCloud Wednesday meetings for quite some time. I want to say it's now 5 years of meetings or somewhere near there. And we went ahead and took an opportunity to start generating AI summaries of the meetings. And we're going to keep this going forward. So far, the feedback has been great, but I'll give you just a quick tour of last week's meeting. So now there are two documents that are automatically created for each meeting. The first is an AI generated summary here that summarizes all the key takeaways and then gives you hot links to the various points of the discussions in the demos and the videos. So we hope that this will make the discoverability of the discussions better. And honestly, some of the best discussions that we have around not just CNCF WASM Cloud, but also WebAssembly are in these calls. So there's a lot of great information that should be a lot more available. And then for each meeting, as you sort of run down, there's also a transcript that's available that's linked as well. So I would really love any feedback on this, or if you want to start exploring this. We've completed all the meetings through 2026. In the next week or so, I'll get 2025 across the line. And then we'll make a decision around 2022, 23, and 24. We may just, cut a couple of these because there have been so many architectural evolutions in Wasm Cloud. I think we want to make sure that we're really just trying to put the latest and the most accurate information available and out there for the ecosystem. Any questions or discussions on the new landing pages for past meetings?
I
Actually, I
think,
think
yeah, go ahead.
I think this is great. Um, and I don't know if you, but and I'm also uh, what you mentioned from the point of view of not going too back in time makes sense because things have changed so much. And if you want to have the history, you can do your own. You don't have to wait for you to do that. So I think it's a good addition.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I have found myself using this even after I did it. I would want to go in. I was working on a few demonstrations that were getting ready to release that demonstrate like some of the GPU features and some of these other things. I know that I've shared some of these privately for some feedback across various ecosystem members, but it was very powerful to be able to come in and then just click and go right through the TensorFlow JS demo here with Mendy. So not trying to be too recursive here, pulling up Wasm Cloud Wednesday on Wasm Cloud Wednesday here. But it's just been very helpful to be able to kind of come through and look at these and find just to rediscover the information so much faster. So I'm really enthusiastic, and I actually can't wait to get 2025 across the line as well, and just make those discussions more discoverable and easier to find. In the Wasm Cloud community, Aditya, if you can just let me know when you're ready, I'll fill some time here to give you a little more time if you're still getting your demo ready. We're getting ready to cut Wasm Cloud 2.2. If you've been following along in Wasm Cloud, I mean, the rate of pull request has climbed pretty dramatically in 2026, as well as the rate and features. Bailey's just finished some huge spikes around the CI hardening, many of which were discussed in last week's meeting, which you can find on wasmcloud.com/community really easily now. And then this week, there were some additional changes in CI as we evaluated some feedback for how we were going to release Wasm Cloud 2.2. Bailey, any comments about Wasm Cloud 2.2? Or I know that there's a
Yeah,
couple of new features in there.
maybe flew too close to the sun on making lots and lots of CI changes. Specifically last week, I landed staging gates, which broke my release flow. So basically the staging gate said, oh, hey, you didn't change this code, so I'm going to be really smart and skip this. But we actually needed it for our release. So I've been working yesterday and today a little bit more on improving the release pipeline because we have an automated release pipeline, but basically regressed from the staging gates. I should have all of that fixed in the next hour, and then 2.2 will go out. In terms of CI hardening, we do have a lot of sweet stuff. A lot of the things, we got out there, we threw up to CodeQL and things, and we got some metrics reported, but we weren't getting all of them. And a couple interesting things I learned is that in our Rust code base, because we have so many examples and templates and other things, we actually have about 50% of our code is Rust macro expansions. And without a pre-warmed cache before CodeQL runs, it is not able to inspect that code. And so we were getting low quality metrics for basically our Rust code. We were at 49%. Now, hilariously, if we were 1% further, it actually would have not flagged that. But because it was getting flagged, I thought I'll go ahead and fix it. And so that's just a sampling of things. And so I've just been iterating through on CodeQL and basically the stuff that gets flagged by the OpenSSF scorecard. When we first added it, there was something like 60 things flagged, and now we're down to basically 11. And I'm just kind of whittling away at that. One of the things that was flagged is that we don't have continuous fuzzing. So I started working on our fuzzing story there. And there's a PR up right now for doing fuzzing on our controller, on our runtime controller. So that is basically, if you look at Istio and Cert Manager and a handful of other Crossplane's another one, a handful of other operators or controllers in the Kubernetes space, they use Go Fuzz to be able to test places wherever they basically interact with JSON or anywhere where you're doing merging of specs, because that stuff can be pretty tricky and cause panics at runtime, or otherwise cause pretty weird outcomes. So I focused our fuzz test around that, specifically on host interfaces, because I think that's where things get the most interesting. So anyways, I've got a PR up around that, which will technically, I think, the next time the scorecard runs, it'll say, oh, you have fuzz testing, you pass. But that's not a complete fuzz testing story for our project. It definitely, I think, is actually complete for the operator controller. I think what I added there, we probably don't need to add anything else. And I ran it overnight. It found actually a few different kinds of bugs, but none of them were actually from it was an authoring of those tests that I found bugs and not actually from running the fuzz tests themselves. Those just ran fine and ran clean. So I found a couple issues around that. But to complete our fuzz testing story, I think for us, it should look more like we're using things like what wasmTime does and reusing some of that corpus against our host. For the most part, we're covered because wasmTime does this robustly, continuously for a really long time. But we do have a layer above, basically where we take those bytes, parse them, look at the interfaces, and then feed them down. So we really should be fuzzing specifically that layer. And we should be able to reuse a lot of the existing testing infrastructure there and just map it over for wasmCloud to be able to add fuzz testing for the host story.
Yeah. I think I had this story with wasmCloud 1.0 and I went through it and it was like I was just ended up either fuzzing Nats or wasmTime. But I can see now that we have Kubernetes stuff, that actually makes a lot of sense, that would be what you would want to fuzz.
I think it's that layer, and then also in wash runtimes layer for the workload scheduling, where we look at the graph of the workload. We could have fuzzed in WDAM. That's like the equivalent layer in WDAM.
Right.
But I think it's actually probably worthwhile to hit that layer. I think it's lower priority than some of the other features that we have, especially given that the sandbox itself, we don't mutate or change, right? So that's fully wasmTime, and so we know that's well fuzzed. Yeah, but that's sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but
So,
Yeah.
Bailey, in thinking out loud there and kind of talking through that, is it your assessment that we should onboard into Google OSS-Fuzz? Is that what you're thinking, or do you think that there's another solution that will solve it in a more simple way?
OSS-Fuzz is amazing. I think, when I ran all night and didn't find anything, that's not enough, right? Like the thing with continuous fuzzing is that you continuously do it. And as you make changes, your code changes, and then new code introduces new problems, new panics. But I would also say that I'm pretty confident it wouldn't find anything. So the priority of getting us added to OSS-Fuzz is pretty low. These Go fuzz tests run in our CI, so they're continuously tested. Just run make test for the runtime operator, and you'll get it. I think adding to OSS-Fuzz, we could, because GoFuzz is in the same format for OSS-Fuzz, and you could add it, and technically you would get stronger control. Although I would say most people who go through the trouble of adding for OSS-Fuzz are folks like Cert Manager that are doing it in security critical contexts. So for us, I would say it's kind of, yes, we can do it. It is now in a place where we could do it because we do have fuzz. Do I think
I
that's the most important thing? Probably not.
I was looking at CVEs the other day, and it's amazing. You can see this huge spike in 2016 when projects started to onboard into OSS-Fuzz and the types of vulnerabilities that were discovered. And the next big spike on the chart that you see in these systematically critical products is the recent Mythos reviews.
Yeah.
Where you see, if you look at like the Firefox, CVE or Mozilla CVE details, you just see this huge spike of CVEs now, with all the teams that have had the privilege of working with Mythos on this. And without speaking about how they did it, Wasm Time recently posted a blog about their use of some unnamed LLM model to do discovery of some vulnerabilities. And I think that it was shocking that they feel like they do everything possible, OSS-Fuzz, cargo audit, all the sort of steps that you would take in the best world, and they were still able to discover some very interesting vulnerabilities. So I have participated in a few discussions on that. I think us retroactively kind of going into that would be a great idea. But I also understand it's not the current peak priority.
Yeah, I mean, I think the things that I effectively ended up fuzz testing are the same things that other people are already actively fuzz testing. Like it's fully
Yeah.
covered. It's almost identical, honestly, to some of the Istio fuzz tests because I based it on how they were doing their fuzz for a CVE that they had discovered. So I obviously wanted to have the exact same coverage for us, but effectively they're fuzzing the same thing continuously. So yeah, I'm not saying I would be against it. If somebody wants to do the work, they are welcome to do the
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
I also think you made an amazing point, or a great point, that we get to inherit a lot of the security configuration and testing Wasm time. I mean, I think that's the core. When you think about the most dangerous part, it's where we run, other people's code, the untrusted code. And I think that's a very good observation. But I think the TLDR is the notorious BIG song, "Mo code, mo problems."
Yeah.
Now, see, I'll never be invited back to host again.
Well,
What
yeah.
sorry, what was that post where they did that? Wasm time?
If you read on the Bytecode Alliance org and news, it's like the second most recent news article. That one was really great that Pat Hickey wrote. We we also did an analysis of some of this and did a different kind of hotter take of that if you want to read it on Cosmonic org site, and that's our most recent blog post.
Oh, I see. So it's the April
Yeah.
9th, 26 advisories. Okay.
Yeah, and I will say you don't need Mythos to let an LLM rip and find vulnerabilities. I've done my share of Claudit in a lot of different places, and I've also obviously run it on wasmCloud as well. I welcome other people to try that. It's pretty easy. You can really find stuff with 4.6, 4.7. The only difference is if you have a jailbroken model, it's a little bit more willing to do evil things. But that's not. You can still say I'm a security researcher, and 99% of the time you get right around it. So, anyways, that's it for that.
Were they both Wasm 64 related? I'm looking at it.
There were four ish CVEs that were medium, basically. So they weren't huge. They were in kind of more esoteric configurations and edge cases. For a lot of the other projects that exist, they're pretty big. I think the other thing I know is that in Pwn to Own, which I think was last week, because Firefox had participated in this, there was one finding, but it was one that had already been fixed. So I think if you're into this, you should read Bobby Hawley's blog post that's on the Mozilla org, where he's kind of like, I actually think these bugs, these vulnerabilities, and this type of stuff is finite. You can find it, and you can fix it all. It is possible.
Yeah.
And I have linked these into chat over here. And it seems like, Aditya, it seems like you're ready for your demo. So if you're ready, we'll hand off to you. I'll make you a co-host right now. And I can't make him co-host. Bailey, can you? There we go. All right.
Should be good to go.
Aditya, off to you.
Thank you, guys. So I'm not sure how many of you are following our weekly community meetings, but there's this one particular issue or a pull request that I've been working on, which basically allows your service component or any component of that matter to essentially tunnel its way out to your host OS port, although this is through explicit port definitions. So what's changing if this gets integrated? So basically, there's going to be this new definition space for socket tunnels, where we create individual rules for the sandbox port. So essentially, the sandbox port, it basically means that any socket that's attempting to connect to, say, port 5432, it's essentially going to get redirected and it's going to connect to, say, this port. But if it's just a plain sandbox port mapping, and it's pointed at, let's say, 3306, it's basically going to allow it to tunnel to your own host OS's network space. And it's going to allow it to connect there. Earlier, this was not possible, which was due to the fact that the TCP sockets were being looped through a virtual network space. So I did some tinkering with Claude and our Cosmonic skills, which has all the beautiful color combinations available. So check it out and make some good stuff, which essentially turns a to-do list platform where we can just make stuff. So instead of just showing you this, I'm gonna demo this real quick. Can you all see this? Wait. Okay, I think this should be visible. Okay. So
We see your VS Code window.
Yep. I'm just gonna go through a bit of code, if you don't mind. So we're in the SQLx socket. So this SQLx is a fork that I'm working on. Basically composed its transport layer to use WASI sockets instead of Tokyo request, all of that. And I have this config.yaml that has this rule set that allows it to connect to port 3306. And I have basically a HTTP component that starts a WSDD main server and allows you to basically call stuff and connect to a service lead component, which essentially does the connection pooling to your database URL. And in this case, I have my database running on port 3306 with a pretty plain password. And this is a function that runs once, and it basically initializes and does the whole creating the table shebangs. And after that, there is a handler that basically keeps this service component alive and listens to various components. So once you have this running, I basically started it and it's running on localhost. So I should be able to show you all this. So I had some to-do list items made in advance, but we could just add what needs to be doing. Take some me time. That's fun, because I'm sure we all need some me time. And that's essentially getting added here. And even on a refresh, it's still there. And if you do a done, it's going to mark that permanently and mark that as true. Even if we refresh it, it's still there. So that works. And I also have a bunch of different filters that I've added. So if you do this, it's basically going to do a table join, and it returns these results. And I've also got another pretty cool view of the live table, which refreshes 3 seconds. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
It looks really nice, Aditya.
Thank you.
I think it looks great. Will that be submitted to the wasmCloud demos as an example? Is that the plan for that one?
Yeah, that's absolutely the plan. I have it in a
Great.
draft pull request. I'm gonna make that ready, and I'll need a review. Hopefully Brooks can help us out if he's watching. Hi.
Yeah. Brooks dropped in the other day and let us know that he's coming back from his little break and that he's gonna look for a couple of good first issues to jump in. I know we all miss Brooks. It's great to see the excitement and enthusiasm. It's been just so amazing in the last few months in the wasmCloud ecosystem. A ton of people have all come to the same conclusion that AI generated code is already the reality, and they have to leverage it to go fast, but they don't necessarily trust the outputs. And so they're looking for runtimes that finally solve the problems around ambient authority and principle of least authority and are secure by default. And so we've seen the pretty rapid influx of folks that are picking up and using wasmCloud, and I think that through the rest of the year, at least, it should continue to scale pretty nicely. So, welcome to any new users and watchers at home, and always feel free to join us at slack.wasmcloud.com or participate in the community meetings linked right off the homepage at wasmcloud.com every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Eric, do we have a doc of the week? I feel like you publish nonstop. Is there one that you'd want to highlight?
Oh, we've been landing a lot of stuff, but much of it has been focused on the community page and the SEO improvements lately. I think maybe we'll come back next week and we'll highlight a few more kind of operational docs that folks will be able to take advantage of.
Great. And if anyone has, hopefully no one has been too inconvenienced, but we've been making a lot of updates to wasmcloud.com to improve the overall structure, make things more discoverable, to deprioritize some of the older content and raise the priority on the newer content. That's involved, like some maintenance, like we converted a lot of the old large images to WebP format, and we took a pass on making sure that all the social graph tags were configured on the website and things like that. So you should be able to see all that if you want to follow along in the pull request history. We've been tagging them out as SEO, and There have been some pretty large pull requests, Eric. We're so grateful for you for triaging all of those ideas and making sure that it all lands in a way that's still easy to navigate and everything like that. Maybe open call. Is there anyone else that wanted to share on the community today or talk about something coming down? Going once, going twice. Anybody? Go ahead, Aditya.
This is related to streams and futures, and I'll share my screen. Why not? So essentially, if you try to create a component setup where you're trying to essentially create your own stream and essentially communicate with those streams between two components. Like, for example, you create a stream from a exporter component and you get the result of the stream back to your initiator component. That didn't work in wasmCloud because stream, future, as well as error context is not supported by Wash's dynamic linker. Essentially in the left and lower sections of the store context. And essentially, this PR is seeking to add that support so that, there can be cross-component stream communication happening between two components. I'd love for people to give their initial opinions on this. And also, there is a upstream pull request that I created on Wasm time because Wasm time, this is a separate issue. I don't think I should talk about it, but essentially, we just want to add async compatibility with streams and futures to our wasmCloud WASI P3 space.
Yeah. So a lot of that comes from also awesome. Thank you, Aditya. I hadn't thought through that case yet until it came up. But essentially a lot of that comes from on the linker in Wasm time. The way that we work right now is that we've got a workload definition, right? We have one service, which is sort of, you can kind of think of as sort of the front door to the workload. If you want to use it as your router to the other components in your workload, you could do that. If you want to use that as the primary egress point for WASI socket connection pooling, you can use it for that, but it's your door that everybody goes through. But you can also not have one, right? And you can have the host route straight to a single component and have a workload deployment with just one component inside it. But if you have a workload with multiple components, like multiple intended to be stateless components, kind of reactors, serverless components, those components themselves right now also have the ability to talk to each other. So you could have one component that says, I'm really good at operating on this type of resource, I'm a REST API and I do this resource, and you have another one that's like, I do this other resource. And then have them be able to link and talk to each other. And so the intention of that feature is to make it easy for people to do that. I have another crazy change that I haven't shown off yet because I'm still working on it, but the idea is so the original architecture and design, the intention is that they potentially should be able to have different lifetimes. Like I should be able to have a request come in from a service, hit component A, and component B doesn't do anything. But the reality doesn't quite match that because if you have component A and component A needs an import from component B, both A and B have to be instantiated. The other main reason why we wanted to have this architecture is that in the future, there's going to be a feature in the component model called runtime instantiation. And so the idea is that our service now would act as the root component and the whole thing is composed together, but I only instantiate what I need when I need it. And the service, basically that service component is actually the one that's going to have the chops to be able to go and instantiate what needs to be instantiated because it's doing the routing. that doesn't exist today, so you can kind of maybe shelve that thought. Uh, the thing that I'm thinking about for what you ran into here, Aditya, is what if we just compose the component? Instead of using the wasmTime linker API and the val type, if we just said, thanks for that workload, let me smush it for you, and now you get a composed component, all that goes away. Not only that, part of the reason why I've been on my benchmarking hobby horse is that I found that it improves performance by 5x. So that would
Sounds about
mean
right.
that this problem goes away because it obviously knows how to pass these async streams and everything. And if you are on P3, like it composes it and it wires it all up correctly. And you don't need Wash's runtime to say, all right, I got this val type and I'm gonna do a link over here and this one's async and like let's wire up the stream. You don't have to do that because it's built into the component model.
But that also support me. Let's say I create a resource and I also I want to stream that resource. Will I be able to do that if I compose the components?
Yes. Now, where things where it wouldn't work is if you're trying to do between the components and the workload and the service. Because right now, what I'm proposing is basically compose all the components together that are the in the components field, but don't compose it with the service because the service still needs to be long-lived and stateful, has a different lifetime. And so I see Chris's question in the chat is how would composing impact the scaling? And that is a great question. It basically means components in a workload now scale together. In a scenario, so like the diabolical case for where this is the worst option is I've got, let's say, 50 components. They have nothing to do with each other, but I like to put them all in the same workload because I can. And I treat them as one unit as a tenant, but in reality, none of them today link together. And now I would be coercing them into a single component, and we don't get a lot of benefit. I think we could probably handle that edge case separately and just be like, are they talking to each other? No, then we don't compose. Like that's probably an option. It does make the logic a lot more complex because obviously if you say I have one blob and now I have one API service, it all just works, right? So yeah. That this how does it impact scaling? Technically, the like answer is all your components now scale together. So you have a very uniform answer. And so for somebody that is in that diabolical case, what I would recommend is they create separate workload deployments, and then they wouldn't have this problem, and it should have zero impact. If they opt to do that workaround, it would have zero impact on their scaling and like current metrics today. So like it would almost be one-to-one with what they're getting today. And honestly, if you swallow the full vision that I just gave you about like, well, one day we'll have runtime instantiation, and the idea is that a workload deployment is a component, the whole thing together, right? Semantically, it's more correct to have them be separate workload deployments anyways.
So essentially, if we do the separate workload deployments, wouldn't that be transferred over TCP?
Well, if they're not talking to, in that diabolical case, if they're not talking to each other, then they still aren't talking to each other over anything. If you're talking about the scenario of all my components talk to each other over a virtualized socket, then maybe, yeah, probably. But I have another idea. So if they're all talking to each other over, let's say, HTTP, we could actually do virtualized host routing on the, and I actually filed an issue for this. Essentially, what we can do is keep an in-memory map of all the workloads that have been deployed on the same host. And if they're all on the same host and you've opted into this, then we can say, oh, well, I'm not going to drop out to network for this. Like, workload A is talking to workload B. Boop, let's go just call that handler. There are downsides to enabling that, especially if you're in a scenario where you need a proxy. Like your reverse proxy is doing some extra work, like passing around the right headers for you and everything. But again, if you're in that scenario where you are actually counting on it all being in the same workload, then you actually don't want that. Like you don't need to bounce out to the proxy. You've already solved that in some other way. So I think the answer is make sure we have enough picks and shovels for people to build the right platform for what they're doing. And there's going to have to be a lot of different customization options depending on how people want to run their workloads.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And even if we do it without composing, I ran into a problem where we're only able to transmit bytes U8 and no other complex types, because apparently that doesn't work in Wasm time. Because I believe it's the resource tables that they don't agree with each other. I'm not sure.
If they're on different stores, that can be tricky. But the way we kind of like cheated is we put them on the same store. So I thought, in theory, I think we can make it. I think I know how I could make that work, and that is more code. So, what if we had no code and and it was 5 times faster? Uh, that might be better.
Yeah.
Might be better. Yeah, I want to have my Are We Fast Yet? Which update on that? I was waiting to get 2.2 out so that I can land the benchmark. Like I've got the reviews on it, we're ready to land it. I do expect to have some iteration loop on that because GitHub Actions, you have to like pay the GitHub Action tax. You introduce a new GitHub Action workflow, thou must run it 30 more times before it works. So that's, I will put in put in my tax for that this week, and we should have it next week. And essentially, I want arewefastYet.com or not arewefastYet.com, that already exists. arewefastYet.wasmCloud, maybe.com or dev or whatever domain I pick. Right now, it's just a GitHub page. I think you can actually get to it if you go to the wasmcloud.github .io/arewefastYet. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't have data. Once we land that, start running that, and then I can do the host component plugin change, have the HTTP routing change, have HTTP instance reuse change for P3. If we get all those in, like I just don't want to make these types of sweeping architectural changes without really good performance benchmarking and metrics around it. Well, do we want to keep talking more? Or?
Well, I'm done. I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bailey. That is the kind of discussion that I'm so glad now we're going to surface better in the wasmCloud Wednesday notes. So with that, maybe we'll do a final call to see if there's any more topics for today. Going once, twice. Maybe a final reminder, KubeCon submissions are due May 31, so you've got 11 days left. As always, if anybody's interested in collaborating or would like some feedback about their submission, that as it pertains to CNCF wasmCloud, we're always excited to help you get talks across the line and help support you in any way. Aditya, what's up?
So I'm going to be attending KubeCon India, which is happening June 18th.
Okay.
So I'm all game if there's any opportunity to represent wasmCloud.
We've had the Project Pavilion booth at EU and US. I don't know that we've ever had one at KubeCon India. Maybe offline on the wasmCloud channel. I'll pick that up and see if we can't get one organized. I mean, it's a lot of fun. You get to sit and just spread the gospel, and we've got a couple decks that we've used there. Bailey, what were you going to jump in on that?
No, I was gonna tell Aditya, careful what you ask for. You ready for some booth duty?
I mean,
it's a really good time.
Yeah, I mean, the CNCF prints off wasmCloud stickers, and in the past we've also brought, just some small boxes of like multicolored stickers, shiny stickers, and things like that. And then we've run off, some hard copy literature that we kind of fly around with. I don't know what it costs to ship a box to you, but I'll check and see. I mean, honestly, it's just stuff that, I've just kind of paid for out of pocket, just printed off a few things. So let me check and see what it looks like. But I think even just being there in a booth would be amazing. So let me reach out to I think it's still George that owns
I think
that
it's
for the
George.
CNCF.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ping George on the CNCF Slack and see if it's not too late for us to get some representation there, because I believe we might have missed the call to action for those and going from there.
Are you speaking, Aditya?
I am unfortunately not. I did want to apply, but I had my exams right on that specific weekend, but they got preponed, so I'm free now.
Sweet.
Well, that's exciting. I'll loop you in on after I talk to George and just let you know what he says. And I'm not sure if we've gotten you a wasmCloud shirt, but let me look and see what shipping would be to get some of that stuff over to you. If not, yeah, I can send you like the plans, and there you can just have one printed locally. It might probably be less than having it shipped, but to be honest.
Honestly, yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, great. All right, well, that's incredible. That's so exciting. Well, feel free to share details in the wasmCloud Slack, doing that here, and just let anybody know if anybody's in the region that maybe we can organize a little meetup that you can lead and some demos and show off some of your new stuff. So I think it'd be great.
Yeah, sounds good.
We should also look into the maintainer track for Aditya as well. They have some free time stuff. We could probably sneak in there.
That
Oh
would be
yeah,
awesome. Do you want to get a demo going? Yeah, all right. So it sounds like we had a couple things to do. Let's pick this up on wasmCloud Slack and we'll run it down from there. Okay?
sounds
All
good.
right. Thank you, everybody.